Welcome to the Baseball Insiders. Thank you for joining us on a Wednesday show. I am Adam Weinrib, and Robert Murray, Fansided's MLB Insider, is typically in my co-chair. He unfortunately has to miss today's show, but we are fortunate in many ways to be able to call on Jess Kleinschmidt to help us and pinch hit again. Jess, you're always ready. At times when I'm like, man, Jess is not going to be able to be available for the show, and then you are, and I'm very thankful. So thank you for joining us heading into spring training so we could talk about some fun storylines we got our eyes on.
If it's anybody else besides my Robert Murray, it would be a no, but I always have him. And I'm glad that you guys invited me back, and I'm happy to be here. A nice little pre-gamer to get ready for the season. I'm getting everything ready over here. So thanks for having me once again. Appreciate it.
Of course, and that is the benefit of having Robert on the podcast. Obviously, you get the benefit of Robert on the podcast, but also people want to do stuff for Robert, which is sick and helpful. So, thank you for volunteering. We are going to talk about some spring storylines that you and I have our eyes on ahead of camp. Pitchers and catchers are reporting across the country. Position players on their way. Anthony Rendon, everybody got their jokes off about how he was probably bummed that he had to do baseball work again. Well, guess what? Fun jokes. He's got hip surgery. So we won't be seeing him or talking about him, but we've got plenty we've got our eyes on. Also, the last time Jess was here, we talked about Nolan Arenado trade rumors, and ironically, they have yet to resolve. So, of course, we're going to touch on those a little bit as well. Reminder to anybody joining us, thanks for joining us live, by the way. The Discord channel is what you get access to if you become a member of this show. So hit join below the video, hit subscribe if you haven't. If you haven't, what's wrong with you? And then come join us in the Discord, either at the all-star level or the rumor mill tier. You get priority responses in this chat. You get a Q&A private in the all-star channel with Robert and myself. I'm there as well. If you have questions for me, sometimes people do, but mostly they have them for Robert. We're in the all-star channel there. Subscribe to the Moonshot. That's our weekly baseball email newsletter where Robert and I and the rest of the Fansided MLB team will break down all the biggest stories in big leagues with humor, insight, behind-the-scenes info, and also check out the Baseball Insiders feed on fansided.com/baseball-insiders, where Robert writes, I write, a whole bunch of other fun people write, and we are always taking cameos and giving you guest columns as well. So check that page. You might get some good stuff. All right. Jess, let's start off with your top storyline that you have on your radar, because I think it's going to tie into a lot of the other further conversations and dominoes and things that have still yet to fall or might fall, or who knows if they're going to fall. What's the number one thing on your mind as pitchers and catchers report and offensive players prepare to?
I think, first of all, I'm never worried. As time goes on, I don't think I'm ever concerned when not every single free agent hasn't been signed at this point. Every time, like, I think that was Dexter Fowler walked over the clubhouse for the Cubs, like randomly, like a month in or whatever.
Yeah, changed out of a leisure suit, showed up. They were like, oh, you're on our team. That's great.
Especially with him, because he's so beloved with the squad. And that was at the point in his career where he kind of got to choose. But obviously Alex Bregman, we're kind of waiting on a decision for him. And I think we finally have the teams that it could kind of go down to. But this is the most fun because you can kind of create the speculation and figure out, like, he's the perfect puzzle piece for a lot of these teams. My personal favorites are the Tigers and the Red Sox at the moment. As far as just because I can kind of visualize with the managers because of the Astros connections. The Cubs, I don't hate that idea. But the way that Hoyer's kind of talking about it, and you take these front office conversations and what they're saying to the media with the grain of salt. But I feel like the Red Sox connection, that is so much Nolan versus Alex Bregman scenario. That's more that than any other team, I would suggest, because they definitely need a bat. As far as the Red Sox go. And I feel like with Alex Cora, he and Hinch are the two managers that them alone could bring wins onto a team. And that's just manager specific. 5 to 10 wins on their own. I can't say that about a lot of managers. And I feel like obviously they know Bregman. I love the way that AJ Hinch handles his team. They know that they have the money there. And I feel like for the Tigers specifically, they had a really good playoff run last season. They would inch toward the World Series with an Alex Bregman. And as far as that goes, that's what they want. and just, bringing Flaherty on the squad and like him being cemented in there, they would have to kind of build up that momentum. The way that Scott Harris was talking about it, he was saying, I'm not wanting to bring somebody else on. We're not, but that's what they say, Obviously I cover the A's full time, and the way that we were talking about bringing on another starter, despite having a really impressive starting rotation right now, I don't foresee that happening. And when it comes to the Red Sox scenario, money-wise, yes, I could see them obviously bringing Bregman on, obviously having Cora there, but also you could argue Arenado could be a scenario as well, because that would be an upgrade at third base. If Devers is the DH full-time, you couldn't argue with Bregman as well. And Bregman on any team is going to upgrade, period. And the money thing is going to be those teams as well. Blue Jays, despite getting Santander, they want another win. They just want to be able to say we had a successful offseason and we're not once again the bridesmaids. But here's the thing, they're going to be a bridesmaid no matter what they do if they do acquire a Bregman. And the Cubs obviously having Kyle Tucker and Ryan Presley, they were telling Hoyer like he's obviously good, but you don't have to tell a front office those types of things. But I think between Arenado and Bregman, it's about their domino effects either way. And I'm surprised the Arenado scenario took so long, but it's kind of interesting. But I don't know if it's the batting average that they're worried. Actually, I do. I would assume like it's the average, and I mean the age. I'm not going to bash on anybody in their 30s, but it's one of those scenarios. Obviously, it's money. It's about how many years Bregman wants. And then the Astros scenario and all of those things. So it's a really interesting scenario right now. But if you like gun to my head, Tigers versus Red Sox, I like the idea more toward the Red Sox, especially with what Breslow's doing. Because if you have to edge with the bat that they need, I would have more consistency. I'd be more impressed and confident in a Bregman bat right now, especially because I know that he wants 2025 right now, but Breslow is looking toward the future, and Bregman's more that.
Yeah, I think it's funny because it tells us, I think when they switched to Breslow in the front office, some of us were even like, is Alex Cora going to get elevated? Like, is he going to have outsized influence on whoever runs that front office? Is he going to be the manager? Is he going to move into a different role and vacate that? And the fact that they don't have Alex Bregman tells me all I need to know about, like, okay, Craig Breslow has the reins. Like, Alex Cora not driving the bus right now. He can say, he can advocate. He can say, I know that Alex Bregman brings intangibles, is a winner, is someone who, whether he ages into superstardom or just regular stardom, is a bat that can obviously help us right now. And look, for me, if he's starting to consider these short-term offers, or like, I don't know, 4 and 5 years with an opt-out after a 1 or whatever, which is the shortest term offer, the Pete Alonso deal, basically, like, yeah, there's some years here, but you could do whatever you want after year 1. He should definitely choose the Red Sox, given the fact that the Green Monster is just right there, just hanging out, ready for 50 Alex Bregman doubles or whatever. That's kind of what he does. So I see the Cubs advocating. I see Jameson Taillon saying like, oh, I don't want to say that Ryan Presley and Kyle Tucker, giving him calls and talking him up, but I don't want to not say that either, that not business that you're talking about. So it's clear that the Cubs are agitating. It's clear that the Red Sox, to me, are going to end up with either Bregman or Arenado. Like, all of the Cardinals smoke indicates that like we have something approximating a done deal with the Red Sox. We have not moved further than that with anybody else, and we want to get him out of here. So that seems to align with, hey, Boston's waiting on Bregman. If they're the winners of that sweepstakes, great. If not, they're going to be the ones to make a move for Nolan Arenado. I do appreciate, I saw, Derek Gould today saying that the Yankees and Dodgers and Padres might be involved on Arenado. That's all nice. That's all well and good. I think it was specifically Yankees, Red Sox, and Padres that he mentioned. That's delightful. It seems like the Red Sox are the plan A. But if the Red Sox do sign Bregman, the Cardinals have to pivot again. And does that pivot mean a deadline trade? Either way, I mean, it's obvious why this is the number one storyline we're watching, because no shame in a late free agency alignment, but this one has significant ripple effects. And I've made fun of, the circulating Bregman rumors. It feels like we've gotten the same 3 to 5 teams on Bregman for like 2.5 months.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why at this point I have my eyes on it, because nothing is changing. Nobody's getting whittled down. Even the Blue Jays keep finding themselves in there. Feels like Red Sox, Tigers, or Cubs at this point, but the list just never shortens. We never learn anything else. And if it's going to be shrouded in that much mystery, then yeah, I'm definitely watching it.
Yeah, and I know, like, obviously money is a big issue, but I think for me it's really interesting when it comes to the 2025 scenario. Is it more of a dire need for the Tigers because they were inching toward playoffs? But the Red Sox, it's kind of the same scenario, because I don't know if, like, obviously every team wants to win, but with the Dodgers scenario, when we're waiting for the Padres to make that big move, and you know how Preller is, it's not like he's sitting there doing nothing. Or was it the whole legality of the ownership stuff that was coming into play? Was that a big scenario? Because I'm never, ever, ever sleeping on the Padres. And I want them to, like, piss off the Dodgers and make some things interesting. Yeah. You have to. I love an NL West race. But I also know that the way that the Giants played in the offseason, I feel like I really thought Corbin Burns was going to go to the Giants. I thought that was going to be a play. And like, I thought maybe, I mean, I don't think they were going to hardcore go to Juan Soto. I thought like they were going to kind of like bloop it in a little bit. They're always kind of a bridesmaid scenario, but I wanted something to happen. Like, I want somebody to go up against the Dodgers. I don't want it to be a scenario where they skip by them. But I also know that when you're going up against a team like that, where you have to do something. So despite all the money going toward these guys, these guys, what is the in between when the Padres aren't making the moves and the way that they put up a show last season? I mean, despite obviously going up against the Dodgers in the playoffs, I don't know what team showed up there, because that wasn't the team during the regular season. And then we obviously don't know what's going to happen as the time goes on, because obviously you have a different team in the middle of the season, and who knows what shows up in September, and injuries come along. And if you have a 6-man rotation, all of a sudden you have a 2-man rotation. We saw what the Braves did last season coming against that Mets series. But I just don't know. You mentioned the domino effect, and there could be that mystery team that comes out of nowhere, and that could play a ripple. Or Jerry Dipoto all of a sudden wants to grab a bat because the AL West is going to be weird over the next few seasons. We know their pitching is good, or they want to finally make a Castillo move. We don't know. So you mentioned the domino effect. You're talking about these 5 teams. I really think one team's going to do something weird, and maybe not like do a crazy move, but it's going to be a little pebble in the water that's going to be impacted. And we're not going to it's going to be under the radar, because they're going to have to do something with the amount of flips that we're going to have to do for the Arenado type of trade. And somebody's going to be impacted. And I think that could actually ultimately make a move, or something happens and then it kind of impacts the trade deadline down the road.
Yeah, if this situation isn't set up for something weird, then what situation is?
Like, it better be. It better be weird, because there's no need for us to be sitting here for it to not be a weird situation. I'm popping popcorn. Give me something. I did not want to sit here waiting for, I mean, the Kike Hernandez signing. I really believe that I know they love Kike, yeah, but that dude does perform in October. I will sit here, and there's something. I want to be the girl who shows up in a room full of supermodels as confident as Kike Hernandez is in October. I want to be that girl. That is not just being loyal. That is, something happens to him in October. And I'm a firm believer in that. That was part strategy as well. But I also know that a lot of it was like FU moves. Like, you don't need some of these things. And I also know that other scenarios that go into play, come on. So like these other moves that need to be made, I don't necessarily need the drama, but we need something to happen to where there's going to be a competitive edge. I know we're never going to be able to duplicate that Mets Braves series last season. Like, we won't be able to do it. My children will never my future children will never be able to see a game like that. Yes. But we can at least try.
Kike is interesting, and it does lead me into, how do you feel about these players? and it's mostly Dodgers announcing their own return to the Dodgers.
I love it.
He did it.
I love
Snell
it.
did it. Sasaki, it's their thing now. Like that, you love it.
I love it because, and here's the thing, like I'm not Robert Murray, so I don't like announce these types of things. I tried until like I got like really weird messages and people like threatening my life. Like it sucks.
Bad.
It is not my thing. I'm just going to tweet about cleats and like cool things. And like, I love debuts. That's what I do. But I think it's so cool how I'm 5-0. Like, come on, Paul. Like I'm 5-0 and that's not true, but thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Like I'm going to go with that. I think it's important for them to have a voice. I think it's so beautiful that we have social media to bring us closer to the players. But I also love that they feel like they're in control of it, because I think it's also important. Like we do have a livelihood as reporters, as broadcasters, that does bring us, puts food on the table for whoever. I mean, I don't have like kids, but if I did, but I also think it's great. You get to create content. I think that's really cool. You can be creative about it, and you tweet about models in here. Yes. And you get to do those types of things. I think that's super important. I think it's great. And especially because you can trust the people around you to not leak it. Like, I think that that's important too, because there has been times where somebody that I've been covering specifically will say like, don't say anything, like, cause I don't want, like, if they wanted to enter the home run derby, and it's a process. You can't just like walk up and say, I'm going to be in the home run derby. Like, you have to be invited, you have to be asked. And there's been a couple of players that say like, man, I would love to be asked. If that were the case, I would love. And they just like, don't say anything, but like, so if you don't mind. But yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and
you got it.
Next time Adam wants to do it, but it's one of those aspects where there's a trust factor there too. So I think it's great. And especially the way that like hype videos are, like there's nothing better than a hype video before a game. Yeah. I think it's hilarious when like the Angels had a hype video, the A's had a hype video before their 112 loss season. Like, let's go. Who cares? Be delusional, baby. But I think they're great. Yeah.
I think they're great. I love a hype video, and I want you to take me into the AL West, given that you are prepping for A's camp. And I know you wanted to talk about the way that the A's roster is developing, and it's developing in a pretty interesting way. I think a lot of people across baseball were like, Luis Severino, okay, I see you. I see that money being thrown around. So take me through what your expectations are as you prepare to arrive at camp.
As much as people are excited about the Severino signing, I'm just as excited to see what Jeffrey Springs and JP Sears do. I feel like JP Sears is entering his third full season after going to complete, 32 starts each season. He is so consistent. He's going to be, he doesn't overexude himself, which is why he's healthy. And that's why he is the way he is. Enough exposure and enough MLB experience, and comes from the Yankees, Citadel guy. He has a deceptive way about him, and he's gone up against and thrown to his former Yankee squad and an Orioles lineup that showed how deceptive he was. And Juan Soto himself was like, I don't know what he did, but I could not hit off of him. So that's just the top three guys, Sevy, Springs, and JP Sears, and a couple of guys who were rookies last year who threw way above their maturation process. And they're going to be, fighting for the 4th and 5th slot on the competition, which is always going to be healthy coming out of spring. And that's not even touching, the bullpen. And of course, Mason Miller is coming back off of an all-star select season. But it's, I think we're going to get peak, or on his way to peak, JJ Bleday, and he's going to be my all-star select possibility for 2025. Defensively, he's just going to get better. A lot of doubles, extra base hits coming out of center field. Obviously a Vandy grad, first-round draft pick. And then when you get, traded, you're going to have a little bit of a chip on your shoulder, and he's still playing up that. Everybody heard about Lawrence Butler last year. He had an amazing breakout season. He's going to continue doing that. Tyler Soderstrom's finally, showing off his power and a little bit more consistency. Shea Langoliers also, he hasn't peaked yet. When you're a catcher, you want to be a servant to the pitcher first before you kind of show off your offensive capabilities. It's all that matters, is you want to show what you can do behind the dish. We'll get to the Angels first. Like, what do you want to talk about? The fact that Rendon isn't going to play. We were going to talk about that either way, with whether he was injured or not. Like, that's fine. We'll get there. And I mentioned the starting pitcher, but third base is going to be interesting. I'm really excited about third base. Signing Urshela was one thing. I wanted to have a third base that had experience because Jacob Wilson's the shortstop. So it's a very young infield between whether it's Nick Kurtz that gets it out of the spring training, Zach Geloff is going to be second base, and Jacob Wilson. So that's a very young core right there. I like the idea of an experienced third base to kind of even it all out. It's going to be who's behind him, and that's Max Muncy, the other Max Muncy. And then it's going to be Brett Harris and then Max Schumann, who is a super utility guy, basically another Chad Pinder on the squad. And so there's a lot of good problems to have. And so, like, just the whole team is great, coming off of a pretty stellar season. And I think that there's a lot that people are going to be surprised with. And a lot of people weren't paying attention to what the team was actually doing because it was about the move. And I know 69 wins isn't great, but 69 wins after 112 loss season is pretty impressive. And it's also going to be exciting because the team's going to be asked about playing baseball as opposed to what's the deal with the move? You're moving to Sacramento. What's this? What's that? Yes, the team is playing in a minor league ballpark, but it's major league standards. It's going by what the major league rules are. If you guys are not new, welcome to Major League Baseball, where in single A, double A, triple A, you're still playing in a major league sized stadium as far as the field is. So it's not like they were playing in a little league stadium. It's not like that's how that works. So that's important to think about as well. Honestly, I'm also really looking forward to just having a sold out crowd each night. And we haven't had that. We had it Coliseum finale, but we also had it quite a few times. It's not like that doesn't exist. But it's really going to be exciting. And like I said, like you said, like a lot of money was spent. Brent Rooker, I can't believe I didn't mention him yet. He's coming off of an injury, so he's going to be playing on defense, but he's not really needed on defense. Got that extension, first extension we've given out in a long time. And he's worth every single penny, not just what he does with the numbers, but what he does off the field. And it's just going to be really exciting. So I'm heading down there in a little bit. And you talked about the AL West. It's just going to be really interesting because it's not going to be Houston Astros, a big gap in everybody else. And even you want to talk about Anthony Rendon, he wasn't going to be the starting third baseman anyway. That was going to be Yoan Moncada. Yeah. And whether he was going to start or not wasn't going to be the story. It was going to be, is he even going to kind of be there? And here's the thing. I'm never going to say that what Anthony Rendon said about baseball, like that's not he doesn't love baseball. He gets it for a paycheck. I totally get where he was coming from. He's like a heel. If you're a WWE person, he's a heel, but it was like the umpteenth thing he said. I was there at the game where he started the fight with the fan. It was at the Coliseum. So it was just, there was a lot of stuff going on. Obviously I've watched him not play more than I've watched him play. And I know we can all agree with that. I think he's played more games. He's gotten paid more sitting than he has playing at this point. And so I know how we all feel about that. If it's not, injury, it's something else with him. So I know how we all feel toward him, but we weren't anticipating him playing either way. That just wasn't going to be the case. So I know we were all mentally and emotionally prepared for that. I love what Perry did this offseason. He's actually a really big David Forst fan. Like, he loves what our GM does. And I've talked to Perry about this multiple times. And you want to call it the Moneyball thing. It's not really Moneyball anymore. It's no different than like what everybody's adopted, like the Kyle Shanahan offense. Everybody's doing it. That's how you're going about the front office stuff. And I think it's just how we're all utilizing and we're looking at different things and how you can get the most bang for your buck. I say that as somebody who covers the A's. I'm very well aware of how we utilize things, but look what Perry did in the offseason. Like, he's spending money as well too. Like, he has the owners saying you can actually spend money now. And that's great. And Kenley Jansen's the most recent one, right? And these are names that are actually standing out. And I think that's something to pay attention to. Christian Walker, not Christian Walker, but when you're looking at that, we'll talk about the NL West later, but with Alex Bregman and that whole scenario, Actually, no, Christian Walker does. Sorry, Christian Walker. Yeah, he's with the Astros now. That's so funny. He was my first sit-down interview ever when I was covering the Reno Aces. But now that he's with the team, that's not just a numbers wise for what he can do hitting wise, but that's a leadership role too. Like, he's fantastic. And the Astros, they're still going to be good, but the big question mark for me is what the Mariners are going to do. And I know the Rangers aren't too far removed from their World Series wins, but I think they're the team that's going to be the one to beat this season, because they're all healthy. We're going to get Corey Seager back again. Pitching's good. But the Mariners are the wild card because of the pitching's always going to be there. They always have disposable arms. It's just hitting, I don't really know. I never know what DePoto's going to do. And obviously it depends on what's going to happen around the trade deadline. But like I said, the Rangers, they're the team to beat. But I'm not just being biased, but the A's are not going to be a crappy team. They're actually going to be really good. And, but it's going to be a really competitive and interesting division this season.
100% agreed. I had the Rangers on my watch list too, and I'm glad that you shared your perspective because it's similar to mine, and it fits right into what you were saying about JJ Bleday. Like, with these guys who struggle with high draft pedigree after they reach the majors, I'm always just like, they're not just bad, right? Like Jack Leiter, he's not just bad. I mean, sometimes the answer is yes, it's not going to work out at the big league level for whatever reason. But often the answer is a little bit deeper than that. There's something to be mined. And Bleday showed that he has that talent last year. I wonder if Wyatt Langford is the guy this year that we sort of think of like Jackson Merrill last year, where we're like, man, unbelievably clutch. We should have seen this leap coming. I'm glad that it happened. Kumar Rocker at Rangers camp, I'm watching. Jacob deGrom at Rangers camp, I'm watching.
Well, you have to. You have to wrap him in plastic too. Bubble wrap. Yeah.
I'm not a deGrom guy because of the availability factor, but still, as long as he's healthy at spring training, I'm watching him. And that rotation doesn't quite go like, 7 or 8 deep that I trust, but Eovaldi, John Gray, there are names. I agree that the most exciting thing about me for the AOS is that it could be for the Astros for the taking, right? But it's certainly not a guarantee. And one final thing that I know you want to touch on that I want to touch on too, so I wanted to make sure I teed you up on this, is the Baltimore Orioles outfield picture shifting over to the East. I've touched on this on previous shows. I don't get it. I don't necessarily understand this, but I'm curious as to your perspective on why so many outfielders and why so few number 2 starting pitchers.
Yeah, there's the Baltimore outfielders is what I'm calling them. It was kind of weird. Like when I was looking at these signings, I was waiting for like a corresponding move to give up another outfielder, but they just like left them. And obviously there were some moves made because Santander is no longer with the team, and neither is Austin Hayes, but nothing was really changed as far as everything else goes. So my best friend, Melanie Newman, covers the Baltimore Orioles. So she walked me through this. I would, because we were both kind of like, how is this going to look? And here's what's interesting. So Tyler O'Neill is a great addition. His speed may not make up for what Anthony Santander had as far as speed goes. But that's where possibly Ramon Laureano can fit the bill. But I haven't seen Ramon Laureano. Obviously, he's a former A. I don't know what Ramon Laureano looks like these days as far as his speed goes. But when it comes to his speed, he was fantastic. And I don't know if it's the same Ramon Laureano that I watched who tried to fight the entire Houston Astros team when I covered him. But he's freakishly athletic. He works very, very hard. Cedric Mullins is obviously going to be the leader of the team. He's kind of a quiet leader, but he's going to have to be that guy since Santander is gone. So there's things you can utilize. But here's the thing. Kowser's taking a lot of reps in center field. He's the AL runner up for Rookie of the Year last season. Mateo may not start the season. He might be on the IL after dealing with surgery. I think it was UCL. So that's going to be interesting to see how that works. And so for the outfield scenario with all of those, it's going to be interesting. Who else do they have? Gosh. Kerstad. Yeah. That's being brought into it too. And then there's a lot of lefty heavy scenarios going on as well. So they have to even all of that out. And I think they have some infielders who they can utilize as well. So it's more about, I don't really know what they're doing. I don't want to be the front office person and say like they're planning on doing something there, but I don't know. It's just, it's very bat heavy. It's very outfielder heavy, which is great. But I don't know, because even bringing, like, obviously I know Ramon very well, but bringing these guys on who are actually like really productive. I don't know if they want to flip them for something, but that they're, like you mentioned, you have a lot of guys who are productive in the outfield, but what does that mean for other spots that are kind of, you need stuff to be filled there? I don't know.
Yeah, I like with every guy they added, I was like, oh, so Heston Kjerstad moves further down the depth chart now. Okay, I was kind of looking forward to him starting perhaps, but yeah, Ramon Laureano, sure. Dylan Carlson, I guess.
Yeah, Dylan Carlson too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Laureano, great, obviously good player, someone you covered. Someone I also foolishly thought was like 37, and then I got the notification that he is 30 years old on the dot. So
I feel like 30 and 37, it's like cat years when it comes to MLB. So you're right.
Yeah, unfortunately accurate. Luckily, maybe doesn't apply to people who are not in MLB, but I do think that is accurate in terms of baseball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I've got my eyes on the O's outfield. I think it's strange. I appreciate that you also think it's strange. And
I'm really curious. Like, I want to see how they do what they do.
Yeah.
Like, because even it sounds like a lot of people don't know. So I'm just curious to see, like, oh, that's why they did that. And then, or if it's like one of those things where you look down, like, how do we get so many outfielders? And everybody's like, I don't know, man.
Oh, we forgot. Okay. Yeah. Egg on my face. This was not on purpose. We did not mean to do this.
I'm trying to think of what it reminds me of. Like, if we ever played a game as kids where we just like, or like a fantasy draft, you're like, why do you have 7 quarterbacks? Like, I don't know. I got like, you have 35 running backs, which nobody would fault you for because eventually you trade, right? Like waiver wire days. But then like, you're like, why did I go crazy on running backs? It's like, I don't know. You weren't paying attention or something.
Yeah, aren't we playing in a 5 QB league, right? No, those don't
exist. I just got a little excited.
Yeah, sorry. I'll use them. I'll convert them to tight end. No, you can't. Okay. Yeah. I appreciate it. I'm glad that you the same take and are equally curious. But this is the time for curiosity. Spring is springing. You know, real baseball is on the horizon. We got like a month plus to figure out some of this stuff. And then we got
the Orioles have 17 outfielders and Bregman hasn't been signed yet. Like that's where
Alex Bregman want to play left field in Baltimore. Like they moved the wall.
That's true. They're like, we would totally sign Bregman if he was an outfielder, but like, sorry.
Yeah, we're tapped out. We got, does Bregman want to be
like, hey, Bregman, we'll give you a deal. How do you feel about playing the outfield?
Yeah, opt out after 3 months, like first ever. Like if you don't like it, you can leave in July. We don't care. Yeah. I love it. This is my favorite time. Well, no, it's not my favorite time of year. Every part of baseball season is my favorite time of year. It's my favorite time to say my favorite time of year is actually starting. And Jess Kleinschmidt, we really appreciate you coming by today to help us as spring begins, as camps are getting underway in Arizona and Florida. You said you're heading out in a couple of days to Arizona, right?
I should get my actual date soon. I just finally, I'm finishing up the final paperwork of coming back this season. So yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll keep an eye out. Anything else that you'd like to plug for anybody to follow? The comment section was wiling out today, so I don't even know.
Yeah, they give me a nice little ego boost. Good for y'all. Like I was the first
ego boost for you. They said you look like a supermodel next to.
I got the Topanga comment, which I haven't heard in a while, so that was nice. But thank you for that. Make sure, you're following everything. I got an expanded role this time, so I'm back on TV once again, which is exciting. I'm also writing for Baseball America, so make sure you're following all of that for all the A's prospects. Like I said, it's going to be a lot of fun, this farm system, and hopefully I'll give you some more updates on all of those when I'm back down there. But back on radio again and a lot of social media stuff, and it's going to be a really fun season. And I totally understand if you guys don't follow us to Sacramento, but we're going to be here and ready for you when you guys are ready to come back. So I appreciate all your guys' support. And thank you also for letting me come on and fill in for Robert.
Of course, always welcome. We're going to say, we will always have a space for you here. So we're excited to have you back at some point, of course, to talk A's ball, how the season's unfolding, etc. Until then, again, everybody hit subscribe. Join us here on YouTube. Join us on your favorite podcast platform. Hey, what's your favorite podcast platform? Sound off in the comments. Let me know. Who knows? But thank you for joining us here, there. Join us in the Discord. Become a member. If you aren't, we'd love to see you. We'll be right back here at 3:30 Eastern on Friday. Robert will return I think. But guess what? I'll let you know if he doesn't. Yeah, you'll know at a time. Until then, Jess, thank you so much for joining us. This is great.